Hello, welcome to Money Talk Viewpoint, the financial education podcast. I'm going to be your host, Stuart Cruz. My guest is Randall Brody. I'm very excited to have him on the show. For those of you who don't know, Money Talk Viewpoint is a podcast that's geared towards the CPAs, RIAs, family offices, and those who serve those areas. As I said, I'm your host, Stuart Cruz. I founded Cruz Asset Management. We're a boutique asset management firm where we specialize in making investment choices with math and statistics, and we are a virtual family office. And what that means is we're a team-based approach to helping to optimize your wealth. Wouldn't you rather have a team of professionals working together on your behalf than you having to go individually to each one of these experts and try to negotiate the solutions and the rules? Yes, that's why we have this new model that's out there and it's been extremely effective. And that's why I'm extraordinarily excited to have Randall on the show. He is part of this team-based approach and model, and he specializes in an area that I think you're going to find extremely interesting. But before we talk about that, let's give you a little background on Randall here. He founded Tax Samaritan. He has a bachelor's of science in finance and business administration from Cal State University, has an MBA from University of Phoenix, and his background in various areas of finance and accounting. But as I mentioned, he specializes in expat accounting and understanding the rules and regulations around that. But before we get into that, he has a really fun hobby. He's out of Nevada and he is an avid skier, 15, 16 years on voluntary ski patrol. And I just don't think of accountants as being skiers and ski patrol people. So Randall, tell me about kind of that personal side of you about being an avid skier, because almost every time I talk to you, you're about to hit the slopes.
Unfortunately, it hasn't been a great ski season in Nevada, but yes, no, been an avid skier since I've been a little kid. So I attribute to that, starting at a very young age and just enjoy getting outdoors, feeling the fresh air and the speed of skiing down the slopes like a madman.
Yeah,
It's invigorating.
that's what you think of, a madman skier and accountant in the same sentence. So,
Yeah, yeah.
well, that's fantastic. I also like to ski. I don't get out nearly as much as I can being in Chicago and it being flat. And I didn't make it out this year either. So that's a little disappointing on my side, but hopefully you made up some time for me.
Next year will be a better year for both of us.
That sounds great. I look forward to it. So tell me a little bit about your journey, because I looked at your background. It's wide variety of financial, experience you have in your background, but you've geared more towards the tax side. So tell me about your journey at least a little bit.
Yeah, no, I've stumbled into taxes. Gosh, I'll date myself. We'll say 30 plus years ago. A coworker of mine, when I was in the banking industry, we decided one year to take an H&R Block class of all things, and we both had a very interesting experience. Found the nature of taxes, the complexity, the challenge of taxes to be very interesting, but also interesting in the perspective versus accounting or bookkeeping, which is very routine. Each tax client is its own unique story, its own unique tax return, and so just it filled me with passion. Believe it or not, we're talking about taxes and passion. That sounds crazy. Well, nobody likes paying taxes, but the adventure or challenge of taxes and the numbers, it's just always been an interest of mine. I fell into the niche or specialization of expats probably close to 20 years ago. Just fell into that specialization, uh, and just found it to be another unique area of taxes with its own challenges and complexities, and navigating the tricky world of U.S. taxes for U.S. taxpayers that live and work abroad is something that I find, very interesting, and enjoy helping clients not just handle their taxes, but help align them with their financial strategies, with their dreams and goals, along with our wonderful advisor partner who happens to be you, Stuart.
Oh, thank you. Well, you can, like when we talk about managing somebody's money, I can say, hey, I'm going to give you I think I can get you X% return given your risk. I think I can outperform the market because of X, Y, Z. I believe that, we can add value here and there, but at the end of the day, what I do a lot of times is conjecture and speculation, and hopefully we're going to get it right more often than we get it wrong. But we don't really know what the bottom line is. For you, it's a lot different. I know when we're working with common clients, I can, again, speculate, maybe I get you that extra % or 2 return. Whereas you can say, hey, if I'm proactive with your taxes and you're paying a tax bill, I can tell you what the bottom line savings is. And it's extremely attractive to clients when they can really see that actual savings number that comes at the end of their bill. It's really quite rewarding, and it's they gravitate towards that, I find.
Absolutely. Taxes could be well, definitely are a bit more predictable than the markets. Nobody knows where it's ever going to be heading, but the tax code is quantifiable. But that said, to be a game changer, to really impact your taxes and your financial situation, you have to be proactive, whether it's taxes or wealth planning. Proactive and having a plan is an important focus to make sure you get your taxes right, make sure your financial planning is right. Nothing's ever set in stone or guaranteed, but that puts you far ahead of the game by being proactive.
Yeah, I'm going to really focus on that for a little bit, because that's a lot of the genesis of what comes in this team-based approach that we use. And not to put any other CPA down, but at all. And my hat's off to you for being more proactive. But what a lot of people in our audience don't realize is most CPAs, while they say they are proactive, I call them structurally proactive. They might say, hey, for your business, we need to do an S Corp versus an LLC. So you're reducing your self-employment taxes. And that is somewhat proactive. But for the most part, they're compliant, which basically means they're looking backwards. They're saying, give me the numbers. I will give you how much you owe to the IRS. We'll make sure you're in compliance. And that's the end of the conversation. Proactivity in tax is vastly different. And most CPAs are not rewarded or wired to be that way. Where, again, my hat's off to you, because you really, really are going after that proactivity where you're meeting ahead of time and doing the planning with the clients so you can do that extra work to save them the money.
100%. And compliance is a very important and required piece. But whether you're looking at compliance from the perspective of filing your tax returns, or from a financial perspective, preparing the books for your business, it's always backwards. It's backward thinking, which is, again, it's required. But forward thinking, that's a piece that's missing for a lot of individuals and businesses. But it being proactive can be very, very impactful for yourself financially, from a tax perspective, planning for retirement, planning for your goals and objectives. But absolutely important, especially if you have a business as well.
Yeah. And I really feel like most of my clients, they feel like their CPAs should be proactive and expect them to be proactive. But the reality is they generally are not, and are not rewarded by the clients for being proactive. And so you just basically get paid off of, if you're really getting paid off of just filing a return, probably not a lot of reason to be proactive for that CPA, and they just kind of grind it out. Whereas you have to meet with the clients ahead of time, understand what their situation is, understand what the goals are, and take steps in the current year in order to reduce those taxes, which is a lot more work, but it's more reward for both you and for the clients. And so, yeah, it's the foundation of what this virtual family office is built upon and our team-based approach.
Yeah, absolutely. It offers transformational services that go beyond, traditional planning or compliance work. And so it's really helpful or important if you have a goal in mind, whether it's retirement, that dream vacation, that dream for
Ski trip.
me, another having a nice home in the mountains for skiing. My wife wants one by a lake, but crafting a strategy that aligns with that full financial objectives so you can obtain the goals. If you don't have a plan, chances it won't come to fruition. And so having a team that supports your dream, whatever that may be, is very important in creating a life where your finances can serve your passions, and not the other way around where you're backward thinking, where you're reactive. It's already happened. You can't do anything about it, but you can change the future.
Yeah. So before we get into the expat portion, let's talk about let's just talk about productivity in general. Was there a moment or a shift or a change or alignment of your thinking where you're like, wow, this compliance obviously again required, but not as valuable as the proactivity in the general tax preparation side? When was this kind of shift of mindset happening for you? It must have been some sort of, or was it ongoing, or did you always realize this?
I knew it was important, but over the years, I've learned more and more that having relationships and deep relationships with clients is very important. But also, I've learned that it's something I really, really enjoy. It's an aspect of the tax business that I really enjoy, having those deep relationships with clients, meeting for coffee. Now, granted, most of my clients are outside of the US, but having an opportunity to meet with them when I'm visiting their city, having coffee, having lunch, even having a meeting on Zoom, a virtual coffee, is something that I found that I enjoy immensely. And having those deep relationships, those friendships, made me realize more and more there's a lot more that we could be doing to help our clients. It's a very intimate relationship with your clients, and that opens up the avenue to provide help or assistance to help them, guide them in that trajectory to reach the dreams and goals.
Can you think of a good anecdote, specific example of where that was really impactful for you? My, self-satisfaction standpoint, something, a case study that really sticks out for you?
Case study. Oh my gosh.
I put you on the spot, huh?
Yeah, you did put me on the spot.
I mean, no, hundreds and hundreds of clients over decades of years. That's
oh my gosh.
a lot. So I was just wondering if there's one where you're like, wow, this really turned the corner for me. Or if not, so I can talk to you about, like, I'll let you think about something. I know one case where I was working, and again, we're managing money. And so I'm trying to do the best and build the best portfolio we can for clients and reduce their risk and get their best rate of return. But I've had a client that just they got paid in company stock and had to sell their stock because they were leaving the company or lose it. And it was $1.5 million worth of stock. So they ended up with a tax bill of about $500,000. And, so if I sold $1.5 million and I paid a $500,000 tax bill, she still has $1 million. Not bad for, doing some work. And she was a pretty young person. But if you're able to do all these tax planning work with them, we were able to drop that tax bill down from $550 down to about $250,000. It's a very impactful thing for that particular person, and it's extremely rewarding because if anytime you can save that kind of money for somebody that they just are aware of, and it's a bottom line number, it's pretty powerful. Yeah. So that's why we really got into this area of partnering with CPAs like yourself that was super proactive, that want to work with their clients, as opposed to just at the end of that rainbow going, oh, you owe $500,000. Hey, what can we do about that bill? So that sticks out for me.
Yeah, I guess I could give you a common situation. So many expats eventually they retire overseas as well, typically to lower cost countries like Costa Rica, Panama, Portugal, and so forth. But a very common situation that expats find themselves in when they decide to retire, they sell their US home, they cash out 401ks and use all those funds to purchase their retirement home and pay for cash. Many times, individual taxpayers don't think of the tax consequences of cashing out their retirement plans, selling their home. They don't think about the aspect of, I'm going to have a tax bill. And so many times we've seen this situation where there's no forward thinking, there's no proactive planning of what's the impact of this decision. They've moved forward and purchased that retirement home, but then a year later they find themselves in the situation where they have this massive tax bill because they didn't plan for it. They have massive penalties and interest, where they have a situation now that the IRS is chasing after them for that tax liability. They're levying or garnishing Social Security or other retirement benefits, so their monthly cash flow is impacted, all because there was no proactive planning. And for clients where we have a deeper relationship, or clients where they've shared with us, hey, I have this plan, in a year or so I'm thinking of X, Y, and Z. What should I be thinking about? What should I do? And so recently we had a client that did that. They came to us, they shared with us their plans, and we were able to prevent them from getting into this situation where they have the IRS after them, they're garnishing wages, they're garnishing retirement plans, Social Security, and so forth. But instead, they could plan proactively, reduce their tax liability exposure by planning it the right way, and again, avoiding all these issues down the line with the IRS or local state tax authorities.
What do you think is the most common misconception about people that are retiring overseas, or something along those lines? What's the thing that trips up the most people?
The most common misconception or mistake that we hear is or is the belief that because I'm no longer residing in the US, I don't need to file a US tax return. The US is one of two countries in the world, the other, Eritrea, off the coast of Africa,
Okay.
are the only two countries that have a citizenship based form of taxation. which basically means regardless of your country of residency, you remain to be subject to U.S. tax filing requirements. And there's same U.S. tax filing requirements apply whether you live in the U.S., in Panama, Costa Rica, or anywhere else in the world. The same tax filing requirements apply. However, when you're an expat, there's probably additional tax filing requirements that are applicable beyond what you experience normally with it just having a U.S. domestic return.
Yeah, I'm sure I wouldn't have thought of that if I'm moving somewhere else. And I mean, I know now because I'm closer to the, you know, the tax professional rules. But if I was when I was an engineer and I'd moved somewhere, I would have probably never thought that I would have had to file U.S. taxes. Wouldn't have made sense to me.
For sure, the majority of folks feel I'm out of the U.S., out of sight, out of mind. I don't need to worry about it anymore. And part of the misconception also comes from because most of the other countries, expats from the UK or elsewhere that are part of your expat circle, for them, from their local country, that's definitely the situation. If they're no longer a resident of the UK and they're living in Costa Rica, they're no longer paying taxes to the UK or filing any returns to the UK potentially.
Yeah. So how does this tie in with the remote work boom that's going on? I mean, post-COVID world, people are able to work all over the place. Even pre-COVID, I was able to, when I travel, again, through Skype, you can talk to your clients and do just about anything you need to do remotely. I can remember I got married close to 20 years ago and I was working in an internet cafe. I got married in Italy. So I was working in an internet cafe in Italy on my wedding day because that's just, I was able to do that. So now people can work really wherever they want in a lot of cases. How does that affect your business and their?
Well, first of all, Stuart, it sounds like you were walking a tightrope there on your wedding day, working on an internet cafe. All I can say is it sounds like you didn't get caught.
Well, they were all, truth be told, everybody was really hungover from the night before. So they were still sleeping. And I had to get up and do some work, but it was all fine.
That's good. So yeah, the expat world is always evolving, just like technology. So are the tax laws. Absolutely, post-COVID and to a certain extent before COVID, one major trend was a lot of U.S. taxpayers and other countries taking on the nomad lifestyle. And certainly a trend is the increasing complexity of nomad taxes. And this is something that we assist with in ensuring that the tax compliance that's required for you as a digital nomad, regardless of where you're traveling in the world, that your compliance is handled correctly and taking advantage of all the tax benefits that are afforded to you to minimize the tax liability. And again, there are things that you can do proactively, thinking forward before planning your digital nomad life. There's things that you can do, such as, thinking about changing your state tax residency before you start the digital lifestyle, so that you can minimize your exposure or future requirements for state filing as well.
How do you keep up with it's hard, whether there are 80,000 pages in the IRS code here in the United States. So how do you keep up with the US IRS codes? And then if people are moving to Costa Rica, you have to be familiar with those laws, or Panama or Portugal, or like you said, they're going somewhere else. You have to be up to date with all of those laws as well. How do you keep up with everything? It's like you have to be a global accountant, an expert in everything.
Well, first of all, it's important to drink a lot of coffee.
uh,
But after meeting that requirement of coffee in pursuing studying the tax code and keeping up to speed, is it's a lot of education. Unfortunately, in this area, the tax code, or this specialty that I've chosen as my path, there is not a lot of educational opportunities or reference materials. So it brings me back to a lot of self-education. There are educational opportunities, but it's also a lot of other relationships with peers that practice in this area, that there's learning opportunities from them. There's learning opportunities that they've encountered that may be available elsewhere in the world, that helps broaden our knowledge and experience. But beyond that, there are, as a credentialed enrolled agent or a CPA, there are ongoing continuing education requirements. So that's part and parcel of keeping up to speed. But keeping up to speed is also, unfortunately, you have to read quite a bit.
yeah.
But reading new tax publications as they're released every year, following the trends and changes that are taking place frequently with the tax code. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, having, again, going back to this team-based approach, having partnerships in areas where maybe you need a little bit more specialized expertise, you have a partnership there in that country. Just like if I have, I know a little bit about M&A, I know a little bit about company valuations, but I'm certainly not the expert. Same thing with tax. I know a little bit about tax, but we bring in the experts in those areas when we need to really dive deep, right? So I don't know, it's probably cringeworthy, but my first thought when I kind of asked that question was, wonder if you could use ChatGPT to help you guide yourself through some of these tax laws. But the more broader question I would probably want to ask is, how has technology really affected your specialty and your environment?
So prior to COVID, we have always been a virtual firm. So technology, from the perspective of video communications such as Zoom, that's always been part of our process or method of communication, whether it was Zoom, Skype, or other technology. Certainly technology is getting far better every year and more accessible. And ChatGPT or Grok, those are fantastic examples. Certainly those are, great tools. I think they're far better tools if you're doing research or a Google search. I think that certainly it doesn't always give you the 100% correct answer, but it's going to get you a lot closer to the answer. And certainly whatever answer is given to you from AI, you want to do your due diligence and double check that with a third party resource, such
Yeah.
as the IRS. Go to the IRS website, search the publications, and see if you can confirm the advice or the answer that you were given. But it's a great resource or research to answer questions or get you pretty close to the right answer.
Yeah, I've heard it framed like 10-80-10. Like if you're going to use a AI assistant, you probably need to put in 10% of the work up front to ask the right questions, know the research and know the proper way to frame the question. Let the AI do 80% of some of that lifting, but then you're responsible for that last 10, as you said. Check to make sure that what's happening is what it says is really true. Make sure that the sources are correct. Make sure that it fits within the parameters and that AI just didn't make something up, obviously. So like that 10-80-10, but it just definitely increases productivity along the way.
Yeah, I always say, the smartest question is the question you ask, and the stupidest question is the one that you never ask. So whether you're asking ChatGPT for advice or relying on your tax advisor, the best approach is ask the question. Have a curious mind.
Yeah, I think that's a great philosophy for life, right? So speaking about philosophies, you have a model. Let's work together to achieve a debt-free and stress-free life. What inspired you for that model?
I think this was reinforced. At least I've been hearing it more and more in the news, but unfortunately, as Americans, majority of Americans do not live a debt-free life. We're very burdened by debt, whether it's credit card debt, tax debt. So my philosophy, at least from the tax angle and the angles that we can assist with, is providing that help so that taxpayers can live a debt-free life. If they're burdened by taxes, they're burdened by the IRS collections and facing those type of issues, we want to live up. We aspire to the name of our firm, Tax Samaritan. We want to be a Samaritan. We want to help individual taxpayers and businesses so that their financial dreams can come true. And certainly not living a debt-free life, that's not a dream. That's unfortunately a nightmare situation. So we want to unburden as much as we can our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't think of a better place to kind of wrap that up. So how can the viewers get a hold of you?
Yeah, so if you have questions or want to learn more about expat taxes, a good starting point is our website, taxsamaritan.com. It's spelled like good Samaritan, TAXSAMARITAN.com.
Sounds good. So I am going to wrap the show with Money Talk Viewpoint. I've been your host, Stuart Cruz. I can be reached at stuart@cruzassetmanagement.com or on our website at cruzassetmanagement.com. If you're interested in being a guest on the show at Money Talk Viewpoint, you can reach out to moneytalkviewpoint.org. And again, this is a wrap. We are a show that's geared towards the high net worth individuals, family office, CPAs, REAs, and those who serve that space. It's been my pleasure to be your host, Stuart Cruz, and it's been wonderful having you on the show, Randall. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you for having me, Stuart.
It's been fantastic. So as my motto says, we work hard to be better every day, and I hope you do too. Thanks for watching.